Let's observe silence for some time. Oh, so currently we are on the third chapter of this book, The Holocaust of Attachment. The third chapter is called The Virus of Attachment. And we have studied the first two topics: how attachment arises, and the second topic, love versus attachment. So before we move on to the third topic, let's recap the main points. Now, in the first topic, he explains systematically how attachment starts, the process of attachment starts. So when you contact the world, when you contact objects and beings of the world, that experience is supported by your thoughts. And only if you linger in that thought, a thin stream of thoughts starts flowing from you to the world, to the objects and beings of the world. And if you dismiss it, if you feel it is not relevant to your life, you have the capacity to use your intellect and dismiss it. But if you do not dismiss that thought flow, it becomes thicker and thicker. So that thick flow of thoughts flowing from you to the objects and beings of the world is called as attachment. Now, once that thick flow of thoughts starts flowing from you to the world, the attachment happens. You want to acquire that particular object or a being. And when you acquire that object or a being, you become possessive about it. So what follows attachment is possessiveness. So you can say attachment and possessiveness are two sides of the same coin. So you're attached to, you want to acquire wealth. You acquire wealth and you become possessive about wealth. Nothing wrong with acquisition of wealth. Just because you have wealth, that does not mean you become attached to wealth. This is the misconception. Just because you have a family does not mean you become possessive about your family. Just because you have power does not mean by default you should be attached to power. And longer and stronger the thought flow, the more powerful is the attachment. It is important. The longer or stronger you allow that thought flow to build up, more pronounced is the attachment. And the law of attachment is the moment you are attached to anything in life, any object or being in the world, it has to produce mental agitations, worry, and anxiety. You are restless till you get it. You want wealth, so you are restless till you acquire wealth. The moment you acquire wealth, there is a fear of losing it. You want power, you want particular position. So you're restless. You will do anything to get that position. The moment you get that position, there's a fear of losing it. And as far as relationships are concerned, attachment is deadly. It creates conflicts and confrontations in any relationship. It could be spouse, it could be children, it could be at your work. And you lose your object of attachment, object or being of your attachment sooner or later. It's a very powerful law. So if you carefully analyze what is happening to you or what has been happening to you so far, that you are buried under the mountain of attachments created by you. Nobody has created these attachments. So how did you create these attachments? Thought by thought. You did not even know the existence of your children before you got married. 15 years, 20 years after the marriage, children are born. And all you are doing is your thoughts are pounding on your children. So you created that thought flow. 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, whatever. So thought by thought, you have created your attachments. Thought by thought, you have to dismantle your attachments, which is by knowledge. And the misconception is you have to drop objects and beings of the world. This is where people misunderstand. You have to drop your attachment to them. You have to drop your possessiveness about objects and beings of the world. You cannot live without possessions. Nothing wrong with possessions. You have to give up your possessiveness. Nothing wrong with family. You have to give up your possessiveness about your family. Nothing wrong with wealth. It's a beautiful commodity. If you have it, if you have higher values. You cannot give up wealth. You have to give up your attachment to wealth. And as far as the difference between love and attachment is concerned, the second topic, so far we discussed the main points on the first topic. Then he explains the difference between true love and attachment. So, like we mentioned a few weeks back, it is not an easy concept. Why it is not an easy concept? Because you feel you are loving your spouse, you're loving your children, you're loving your family, you are loving whatever, whoever. So actually it is not love. If you analyze, it is nothing but attachment. So you need to differentiate between love and attachment, and that takes a while. So since early childhood, we believe what is attachment is love. Now, if you are hearing it for the first time, give yourself some mental space. So what's the difference between love and attachment? So attachment is rooted in self-centeredness. It is about you. Love is always about another person. Love is service, sacrifice, identification. So if you remove self-centeredness from a relationship, what is left is love. But when it is polluted, when your love is polluted by selfishness, it becomes attachment. So that is where you get the equation. I'm just recapping. Love plus selfishness equals attachment. Attachment minus selfishness equals love. So what you have to remove from your relationship, that feeling, is selfishness. The moment you remove selfishness, what is left is love. And that is identification. That is service, that is sacrifice. And if you are attached to anybody, it has to create confrontation, and if it is pronounced, it will lead to separation. It's a law of life. Nobody likes, if you are attached to anybody, nobody likes that. So where there is attachment, they repel. This is what is happening between you and your children. Why don't they, the moment you go near your children, mom, dad, please, they run away from you. And you mean well, but you are possessive about them. So therefore, attachment repels, even between husband and wife. Initially, it is okay. Beyond a point, it repels. That's what creates conflicts and confrontation. But if it is genuine love, it attracts. So these were the main points in the first two topics. So are we clear about these two concepts? Any doubts? Anything you want me to explain? I think you discussed maybe 10 or 11 questions, right? So are you okay with those questions? So somebody had a question, right, Radha? It was emailed to me. I think Radha has left. Radha, Avira, are you there? I think she has a flight to catch. All right. So let's move on to the topic 3. It's called as 3 poems. Now these 3 poems are by stalwarts. All of them were literary giants like William Wordsworth, Robert Browning, Matthew Arnold. Now the reason Swamiji has included these poems in the book is the main reason is just to explain to us that the concept of detachment is not the Eastern concept. Some people, they believe, especially in the Western world, oh, detachment. In the Western world, we are attached. No, even the Western philosophers, they are talking about the deadly consequences of attachment. So therefore, these 3 poems are there. And they explained in detail in Swamiji's book, the Select English poem. So here is just going to give us the gist of these 3 poems. So we'll read them one by one, and I will explain the main points. So they talk about, all these 3 poems, they talk about the devastating consequences of attachment. like husband's attachment to wife, wife's attachment to husband, father and son attachment to each other. What happens? In each case, it leads to confrontation and separation. So, Raji, can you please play the recordings?
The three poems. Three poems have been carefully selected to portray the trait of attachment and its devastating effect upon the lives of human beings. They form part of the collection compiled by the author under the title Select English Poems. The three poems. 1. Laodamia by William Wordsworth. 2. Andrea del Sarto by Robert Browning. 3. Shorab and Rustum by Matthew Arnold. Laodamia. Laodamia was a Greek princess totally infatuated to her husband Protesilaus, a Greek prince. The Greeks were at war with the Trojans. The Greek armada was approaching the shores of Troy. The soldiers were all perturbed as a Greek oracle prophesied that the first soldier landing on the Trojan soil would be killed. As the soldiers were debating who should land first, the prince Protesilaus jumped on the shore and he was killed. Laodamia was totally shattered at the news of her husband's death. She pleaded with Jove, the supreme god, to restore her husband to her. Jove granted her prayer to have her husband's company for a brief period of 3 hours. The poem starts with Protesilaus' return to earth, escorted by god Mercury. In the short sojourn, Protesilaus speaks chaste philosophy, explaining her ungoverned love to be sheer attachment. Wordsworth's underlying message in the poem is that attachment leads to painful separation, even death.
So, Laodamia talks about woman's attachment to man, wife's attachment to her husband. So, Protesilaus was the prince and Laodamia was the princess. So, when Protesilaus is killed in the war, so what happens to her? So, eventually she dies. I mean, she gives up mentally. It's a very powerful message that attachment leads to separation and even death. Like Swami Ram Tirtha, he talks about it, he's very articulate about it. He gives that warning: if you are attached to any being, he says there will be confrontation, there will be separation, and if it is pronounced, one of you will die. So you don't understand what does he mean when he says one of you will die. So Laodamia is the best example of that. It's a very pronounced attachment to, like, wife's attachment to the husband. So if you have interest, if you have inclination, you can read that poem, and we can't get into the details. It's amazing the way he describes. So, woman's attachment to man and what happens. Andrea del Sarto talks about husband's attachment to wife. So, Raji.
Andrea del Sarto. Andrea del Sarto was reputed as one of the greatest painters of his time. An artist of the caliber of Leonardo Da Vinci, Michelangelo, or Raphael. However, Andrea faced a serious problem in his life. He was totally attached, infatuated, mentally bound to his wife, Lucretia. As a result, he lost the king's patronage, his brilliant career, and even his beloved Lucretia's love. Here again is a powerful depiction of the devastating effect of attachment.
So if you read the poem, it is there in the Select English poem book. Throughout the poem, he's saying, Lucretia, 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 Lucretia. So after a while, you get disgusted, you know. And she did not care about him at all. So much so that she's sitting in the window and he's telling her, let's hold hands and let's talk to each other. He's pleading. And there is a lover, wife's lover waiting there, and he's whistling. So he's pleading, do you have to go right now to him? Please spend some time with me. I mean, you must read the poem, what kind of a person is this? Like disgusting. And he ends up losing that relationship. In fact, he loses everything, his career, his patronage from the king, everything he loses. So therefore, I mean, if not here in the book, he says, he was a great artist, Andrea Sarto. In fact, Leonardo da Vinci, he said he is superior to me. But how many of us have heard about Andrea Sarto? How many of you heard about Andrea Sarto? Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, everybody knows. So he was superior to them. Then what happened? Why did he lose his talent? Now, some of you may say, no, it is not, it is a poetry. No, in real life also it is happening. If you go back to your college days, I have seen number of examples. Some of my classmates, they lost their career because they were infatuated to a girl. I'm sure you can come out with your own examples. Like talented boys, and the girls did not care for that particular boy. Or you may lose an opportunity in life. It could be career, it could be in the spiritual field, that you got a great opportunity, but you're infatuated to a woman or a man or whatever. So, Andrea sort of talks about husband's attachment to a wife or a man's attachment to a woman. And Sohrab and Rustum by Matthew Arnold talks about father and son's attachment to each other. And again, it leads to separation and death. So Raji, can you please play that?
Sohrab and Rustum. Matthew Arnold, in his sensational poem Sohrab and Rustum, describes a fierce combat fought between two great warriors who did not know they were father and son. Rustum was the father who was obsessed with the idea of having a son even before his wife bore a child. He was an invincible warrior, constantly engaged in single combat. And his wife was tormented at the thought that he could return from the battle either alive or dead. On one such occasion, when Rustum was away for a battle, she gave birth to a son, Sohrab. She feared a son would also be trained for war and exposed to the risk of death. In her extreme attachment to the son, she sent word to Rustum that their issue was a daughter. Rustum was totally upset on hearing this news, as he craved for a son to pass on his great skill and valor. His dejection resulted in ending his active martial career, and he chose to live in seclusion. Against this backdrop, the son Sorab, having known the glorious deeds of his illustrious father, learnt the art and skill of warfare to match the prowess of Rustum. However, he promised his mother he would venture into the battlefields only to find his beloved father and bring him home. All the while, Sorab developed a deep attachment for an unknown, unseen father. Thus, both father and son were possessed with a dreadful attachment for each other's image. In one of his encounters, Sorab marched on to Persia. The Persian king knew the outstanding career of Sorab and was alarmed. The king approached Rustum and persuaded him to come out of his hiding to fight Sorab in single combat. With difficulty, the king obtained Rustum's consent on condition he would fight Sorab incognito. Thus ensued a most unnatural combat between an unknown father and an unknown son. And both were frightfully attached, possessive with the other's image. Unaware of their relationship, they plunged into that ghastly combat. The old warrior soon realized that the young lad was overpowering him. In desperation, he roared his name, Rustum, to raise his own spirits. Sorab heard his beloved father's name and shrank. That name transfixed him. Bewildered and motionless, he dropped his protective shield, and Rustum pierced a defenseless Sorab with his spear. A conversation ensued between the dying son and his father. Soon they discovered their true relationship. A deluge of emotions engulfed them. The young Sorab died clasping his father. Here again is an example of the devastating effect of the human weakness of attachment.
Three powerful poems. They highlight the concept of attachment and the devastating result of attachment, what happens. So if you have the patience, you can read the book, select English poem book, 3 poems. So any doubts? Any questions, any clarifications? See, those who are familiar with Indian scriptures, Ramayana also talks about, it's about Lord Rama. His father's attachment to Lord Rama, Dasharatha. So he died because of Putra Shoka. That's a word they use, attachment to his son. When he was sent to the forest life, Lord Rama, for 10, 12 years, so his father could not handle that separation and he died due to that. Putra Shoka. Shoka means sorrow. Putra is son. So you come out with your own examples from day-to-day life. So what you need to understand is at least somehow gulp it down to begin with. Then comes the application. That any attachment is disastrous. He is talking about a close relationship, and you are tremendously attached to everybody. So where is the chance? And due to ignorance, you cannot correlate what is happening to you and what is happening in the relationship. But with this knowledge, you will be able to correlate. Yes, because I was attached, it created unnecessary conflict and confrontation. A lot of parents, they come and they ask, what went wrong? So much I loved my son, so much I loved my daughter. In spite of that, they are not willing to talk to us. The reason is you are tremendously attached to them, you are possessive. So that's the law. Attachment creates conflicts, confrontation, separation, and if it is pronounced, but death. So that's the message. Are we okay? I know all of you have become very serious now, but it is what it is. No questions? Makran, all clear? Is totally detached, right? All right. Let's move on to the next topic. Attachment is calamitous. It is one of the longest topics in this book. So let's understand it step by step. Raji.
Attachment is calamitous. Human beings the world over have developed a general trait of self-centeredness, selfishness. This negative tendency has assumed the dreadful form of attachment. Attachment is rampant everywhere. It's a deadly virus destroying the human race. Yet, nowhere do people realize that they are helpless victims of their own attachment. Much less do they visualize its devastating consequences. People are attached to objects and beings of the world. Their attachment further develops into a strong desire, craving to possess and enjoy them. And they squander their entire life chasing wealth, woman, name, fame, power, practically everything in the world. Having acquired their desired objects, they become possessive and envious of those who have more and arrogant at those who have less. Thus, emotions remain the cause of stress in human life.
See, the whole thing starts with what? That's the main point here. The concept of attachment, the whole thing starts with what? And we're not saying it is wrong, but you must understand what is happening to you. He's saying, see, the topic is attachment is calamitous, meaning the devastating consequences of attachment, meaning it is going to happen in the future. So how the entire process of attachment start? How does it start?
self-centeredness.
Excellent. The whole thing starts with self-centeredness. Self-centeredness meaning I want this, I want that. And you get attached and possessive about the objects and beings. And you want to enjoy those objects and beings. And then that creates host of emotions. Like envy, there is arrogance, there is worry, there is anxiety. So all these emotions are there in you, in everybody, but you are not able to correlate that to the very selfish thought that I want to possess it. See, there is nothing wrong in possession. This is what you need to understand. But the moment you want to possess anything selfishly, there's a self-centered interest, the focus is on you, then the problem starts. Number one. Number two, not only you get attached, you are not aware that you are attached. So that's the deadly part. If you are attached and if you are aware, then there is some hope. So you are attached, perhaps you are terribly attached. It is tremendous attachment. There is tremendous possessiveness. Let's say about your children, about your spouse, just to explain the concept. And you are paying the price. Mentally, you are going through turmoil. But you cannot correlate that mental turmoil to your attachment. That's the problem. That's the difficulty. So how can you come out of it? It's not possible. This morning, I got a call. All the family members, one by one, they were calling me. First, the younger sister called, then the father called, then the mother called, and the older sister called. A lot of conflict, a lot of confrontation is going on, especially from parents' side. So what they are not able to understand is they are so possessive about their daughter, the older daughter. The younger daughter is totally different. So parents are so attached, they are not willing to let her go. She got a baby a few months back. The baby is maybe 4 or 5 months old. The girl is in India, very sweet girl. I mean, I know them for the last 15 years. The parents, they are so attached that they took a break from their job, sort of like 2 months, 3 months long leave. I think, in fact, they took 5 months leave. And they went and they planted themselves in their girl's house. Within 1 month, they left, lock, stock, and barrel. And they're saying, why is she screaming at us? We are her parents, we mean well. Half an hour they were talking, and then the girl, whom they're attached, she called. She said, they are suffocating. They're coming and telling me, do this to the baby, don't do this to the baby. And there is mother-in-law in the picture. You understand the complications. Half an hour, 45 minutes, they were chewing my head. What went wrong? We care for her, you know. That is attachment. So at least they have some kind of exposure to this knowledge. So they can correlate. But imagine the plight of people who are totally ignorant. They cannot correlate. So they are frustrated. You know, what's happening? What's going wrong? So that's the problem. So not only you're attached, but you're not aware that you're attached, which is the cause of all your sorrow and suffering. So How can you come out of it? It's not easy. Are you okay? Any questions?
Yes.
क्या question?
Everybody has become very quiet. I know that. I mean, this topic is like that. I mean, what can I do?
It seems we might also not be aware of becoming attached.
Say that again.
I said it seems to me as if we are probably also not aware. We're not only aware of being attached, but we're also not aware when we are becoming attached to something.
Right.
It is one and the same thing. One and the same.
One and the same thing.
See, if you are aware, then how can you get attached?
That's right.
In the initial stage, there is a hope. See, therefore, I think I don't know whether I mentioned this. You are, when I say you, most people, you are buried under the burden of your attachment right now. It's like a mountain, the whole mountain of attachment on you. So, how did you go under the mountain? Is the question. I'm putting it in a different way. Don't say one fine day I got up and I found myself under the mountain. It doesn't happen that way. So, how did you get buried deep inside that mountain? The mountain of thoughts, the mountain of attachment. Understood?
बोलो.
नहीं मैं गाउन करना मैं करती है
Hmm?
बात नहीं.
नहीं
Can anyone answer that question? Just as a concept.
Through selfishness.
Correct. See, you are attached to begin with, but you're not aware that you're getting attached. That is the point Magdalena is making. I'm just expanding on that. So once that attachment becomes pronounced, become possessive, where is the chance? So in the initial stage, there is a chance. See, if you go back to the very definition of attachment, how does the whole thing start? The process of attachment, how does it start?
Thoughts.
There is a thought. The thought lingers that yes, I want this, I want that. And if you do not use your intellect, if it is not relevant to you, it keeps on building. So the thin flow of thoughts becomes thicker and thicker. But you have the capacity to deal with that thought flow right in the beginning. So it is much easier that you become aware that yes, I'm getting attached to my spouse, I'm getting attached to my children, I'm getting attached to wealth, I'm getting attached to power. It's much easier. But once you're attached, once you are possessive, it is extremely difficult. Of course, with this knowledge, I mean, how long does it take? It doesn't take long to dismantle. From practical point of view, I am discussing for the layman. So are we okay?
Yes.
Please continue.
should speak about hers microphone on.
Next paragraph, please, Raji.
Furthermore, as people live a promiscuous life of material and sensual indulgence, they lose the enjoyment thereof. They become neutralized to the pleasure and joy of contacting sense objects. You need an intellect to realize that indiscriminate indulgence in the senses corrodes, destroys their very enjoyment. When your sense organ contacts a sense object, you experience a quantum of enjoyment. But through repeated contacts and your indulgence in it over and over again, the quantum of enjoyment diminishes. And if the indulgence continues further, you would completely lose the enjoyment. You then reach a state known as neutralization. Through licentious indulgence, you become neutralized to the enjoyment of objects and beings. An alcoholic does not enjoy his drinks anymore because of persistent drinking. A couple getting too close and doting on each other would lose the joy of companionship. It's a law of life. Indulgence actually deprives you of the pleasures you seek in the external world, and you would reach a state of total boredom. The world then ceases to provide you with any form of entertainment, joy, or happiness that you seek therefrom.
So once you are attached, you start indulging in that particular object or a being. And when you go on indulging, what happens? That the joy content reduces with each subsequent contact. You're attached to going on a long drive in a car. You're fond of driving. I'm giving you a simple example. And you go on indulging in that. Every weekend you go on a long drive. 200 miles, 300 miles, 400 miles. Within few years, you lose that joy, isn't it? Even if you are given the best car in the world, I mean, it's no big deal to you. But if you do it sparingly, maybe a few times in a year, when the color changes, you go, something like that. Throughout your life, you will enjoy that experience. But if you indulge in it, the law of diminishing return applies. And if it is pronounced, you become neutralized to that joy. It's called neutralization. So when you have the object, you have that being, but you're not getting any pleasure out of it. It's called law of diminishing returns. And it ends with neutralization. So he's giving the same example about a couple. If you get too close to each other, suffocatingly close to each other, we're not saying it is right or wrong. You just observe what happens. All the time, honey, sweetie, bunny, and this and that. I mean, what's the big deal? So you lose that joy content. All the time you're holding hands, all the time you're together, everything you're doing together. After a couple of years, becomes sickening. You lose that joy of company, that companionship you do not enjoy anymore, isn't it? So it's quite a discipline to withdraw while we are having it. That's the problem. See, even you may have all the wealth in the world, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you indulge in that wealth, you lose the joy content. Yes, wealth is meant for enjoyment. But you have that capacity, but still you live a simple, frugal life. Relatively speaking, I am talking about. You enjoy wealth. That's not what is happening. The moment you acquire wealth, when you are attached, you start indulging in it. And beyond a point, it does not give you any pleasure. This is what is happening to people who are super rich. And depression is a disease associated with super rich. That does not mean every rich person is depressed. There's no cause and effect relationship. If you indulge in it, then you lose that pleasure. Are you with me? And this is what well-to-do parents they are doing. You pamper your children with all the amenities. It's in the rich family, well-to-do family, it is sort of accepted when the son or a daughter becomes 17 or 18, they gift him or her BMW Sports Series, Audi 5 Series, something like that. So what joy that boy or a girl is going to get in life? I'm giving you one example. Everything is like that. It starts with, by the time they are 10 or 11, they have to get iPhone 10 or 11, isn't it? I'm not saying they should not get. I mean, how did you feel when you bought your first iPhone? Just to understand the concept. I mean, you get a kick out of it, right? But you talk to your children, I mean, they won't understand what you are saying. What kick mom? What kick dad? I mean, it's just a phone. So it is quite a discipline to withdraw while you are enjoying it, even in the companionship. One thing is, all the time you are together, you lose that joy. So that's the point. So whether it is object or a being, the formula is same. And you are generally attached to everything in life. But there are certain attachments which are pronounced. It could be family, fine. Somebody may not be attached to family that much, but the same person could be terribly attached to wealth or a power. Generally, you are attached to whatever you contact. That's the nature of the mind. But there are 2 or 3 pockets which are really, really pronounced. And that pronounced attachment can bring about your downfall in life. By downfall, I mean your mental stress, worry, anxiety, or it could be your downfall also, literally speaking. So that's what happened to Andrea Sarto. What brought about his downfall, what is pronounced attachment to his wife, isn't it? So that is why people all over the world are suffering, worry, anxiety, stress, and whatnot. But they are not aware of the cause of their suffering. That's the problem. Like my sister, they have a house in Pune. Right now, I'm in India, a city called as Pune, not far from Vedanta Academy. So they are from north part of India. They also have a house here. And my nephew, he got a son. He's a lovely boy, 4 or 5 years old. So my sister is spending 1 month in Pune, 1 month in north. So whenever she catches a flight, that day nobody can talk to her. Half a day she is crying. Why? Because she's not going to see her grandson for a month. I'm not saying it is right or wrong. You decide. I mean, I don't know what kind of pleasure is that. Or it could be wealth. It could toss you throughout your life if you are attached to it. So the point which I'm trying to make is you are generally attached to what?
Objects and beings.
Everything in life, all objects and beings of life. But there are pockets where your attachment is
More
nobody
pronounced.
following what I'm saying?
Now,
Pronounced. So now you find out where your attachment is pronounced. It differs from person to person, isn't it? Like one person could be tremendously attached to his partner. Another person could be tremendously attached to wealth. The third person could be attached to his religion, or whatever. So wherever the law of life is, wherever there is attachment, there is what? Conflict, confrontation, worry, anxiety, sorrow, separation. The attachment to yourself. You could be attached to your own health. And as you age, body is going to degenerate. So it's a law of life. And all the time, sometimes I hear discussing, my sugar went this much, my cholesterol is this much. Did you do lipid thing? Did you do, I don't know. That's all they are discussing. So when you listen to that discussion, I mean, you come out depressed, literally. I don't know whether anybody has experienced that. All this is what they are discussing. When you do that course, you do that course, you should not eat this, or that particular clinic is good. Have you tried Ayurveda? This is all they are doing. The hair transplant, I heard, I don't know, somewhere in Europe they do. Have you tried this? I mean, it goes on and on and on. I'm not saying you should not take care of your body, but if you're attached to it, before you know it's gone. I mean, how long the youth lasts? I think all of us, most of us are like above 30 or 40 years. When you were 25, when you were 30, in your teens. So before you know, it is gone. So you could be attached to your own health, your own looks. So you can go on multiplying. And all that put together, all these attachments they put together is creating havoc at mental level, which you cannot what? There are disturbances, you are disturbed. It's a question of more or less. And all it is because of attachment. But due to ignorance, you cannot do what?
Identify.
Identify. You cannot correlate. Because I am attached to my children, mentally I am suffering. That is that correlation. Because I am attached to wealth, I am unnecessarily stressed. Because I am attached to my health, I am stressed out. So you cannot correlate that. That's the problem. So are we okay? And then I'll catch you when you're fresh next week. Then one by one, he analyzes. If you're attached to wealth, what happens? It's deadly. If you're attached to woman means partner, spouse. What happens? If you're attached to children, what happens? If you're attached to religion, what happens? Is in-depth analysis. So that's the topic all about. Attachment is calamitous. So any doubts, any questions?
हाथ खड़ा करो है
Yes, sir.
It was a wonderful talk today, Amitji. Thank you. Can you just define, or can you just, in one or two words, say what is the difference between attachment and possessiveness? Because we are attached to many things in daily life. And is there any signal that, okay, you're getting into possessiveness, back up, besides being aware of it, as you mentioned?
It is same. Attachment means possessiveness. It's easier way to understand attachment. You become possessive about something. So when you become possessive about, let's say, wealth, you will do anything to acquire wealth. And when you acquire wealth, there is a fear of losing it. So where is the pleasure? To acquire wealth is not easy, because according to you, when I say you, I mean I'm discussing the concept. It is never enough. You acquire X amount of wealth. Preservation of wealth also is not easy. Stock index goes up and down, your heartbeat goes up and down. Spending also is not easy. So where is enjoyment? So there is a fear of losing. In a relationship, you want to acquire a partner. Having acquired a partner, there is a fear of losing the partner. You are attached to power. You want to get power. The moment you get power, there is a fear of losing that power. By power, I mean position. Somebody makes you the president of a particular club. So you are quite desperate to do that. The moment you become a president, the thought comes, oh my God, the term is only for 3 years. Will I be re-elected in the next election? Like that. So you're possessive. If you're not possessive, it doesn't matter. You may be the most powerful person in the world. You may be the most healthiest person in the world. You may be the most wealthiest person in the world. It doesn't make any difference to you. That's the difference. So does it help?
Yeah, so one should be just always aware of it. Okay, I am trying to be, as you mentioned, wealth, all those examples. So you keep on doing it, but at the same time, you just say, okay, fine, I will not be so possessive. I mean, it's got to be when you get that feeling like fearfulness that you will lose everything and all that. Sometimes you don't get that feeling. So it's just like you keep on going and going. So I think maybe awareness is the only answer that, okay, stop it, back off and be content whatever you have and don't be possessive. I think it's kind of a interlocking. It's difficult to set in the practical life every day. So
By wanting to be detached, you cannot be detached. Life is very easy. Okay, you understand I'm attached to wealth. Okay, from tomorrow I will not be attached to wealth. It's not possible. I'm attached to my children. Therefore, it is creating unnecessary conflicts and confrontation. From tomorrow onwards, I will not be attached to them. It's no. I mean, that is where the education comes in, isn't it?
so that's what I said, because you are on a daily basis attached to all these things. So I think awareness is the only answer that I can get from you.
To begin with, so the moment you are aware of your attachment, it is the beginning of detachment. Half the battle is won. There only. Once you become aware, you will apply yourself with this knowledge. But the problem is, that's what the book is telling us. The problem is we are not aware. So how can there be any solution to it? Isn't it?
Yes.
You're right. Awareness. The moment there is any thought, there is awareness, there is hope. You can come out of that particular attachment. You will work on it.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I have one question, Amiji. Thank you. So, can there be also attachment related to, let's say, negative emotions? I am feeling victimized the whole time, or I am feeling insecure the whole time, or I am feeling threatened the whole time. So this can there be, I don't know how to say it the best, because there's also attachment to, let's say, alcohol and smoking, right, which is a bad habit. But can there be an attachment to these type of negative thoughts and feelings that we develop?
Yeah.
It is self-centeredness. That's what we said in the beginning. The whole thing boils down to selfishness. There is too much of focus on your personality. You are attached to yourself, body, mind, intellect. So you become possessive about yourself. So the moment somebody does not cater to you emotionally, then you may develop negative feelings towards that person. Intellectual level, somebody does not subscribe to your views, your ideas and ideologies, you may develop negative thoughts or feelings towards that person. But if you go to the definition, you are possessive about yourself. about your body, about your mind, about your intellect. It's the effect, what you're talking about is the effect of that attachment. So we are going to the very cause. You're possessive about yourself, about your personality. You're attached to yourself. You have fallen in love with yourself. Are we okay? Group is okay?
Thank you.
So, yeah, let's conclude for today, and we'll continue with the discussion, wealth. Next week, he talks about wealth, attachment to wealth.
Show your face.
So I'll see you on Saturday in case you're attending Bhagavad Gita, or I'll see you on Sunday for the Holocaust of Attachment. So have a good day, all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Leave the meeting. Where is Radhika?